They built an empire together, brick by brick, hand in hand. But when success came knocking, so did betrayal. He replaced her with his mistress, thinking he had won. What he didn't know was that she wasn't broken. She was planning. And what came next would turn his perfect life into ashes. This isn't just a story of revenge, it's a warning. Because some betrayals don't end with heartbreak, they end with destruction.
Emma had previously thought of the intimacy of marriage, as well as the common dream she had helped create from the bottom up, as a sacred union. She and her husband began years ago with just ambition and a shared vision. By means of sleepless nights, unrelenting negotiations, and great sacrifices, they transformed that vision into one of the most esteemed companies in their sector. Emma had given the business every bit of her intelligence, imagination, and loyalty, since she knew her commitment would always be matched. She would also learn, though, that loyalty was a currency not everyone valued equally. The treachery came with a forceful public statement rather than warning signals. Standing there, her husband, her partner in every sense, he said without regret Emma was leaving. His new partner, a younger lady groomed and poised, the mistress Emma never even suspected would take over in her stead. There was no opportunity to process or fight, no private talk, just a chilly, deliberate action carried with a haughtiness and the weight of long-prepared legal paperwork. He considered her likely to fall. He expected wrath, tears, maybe even a public outburst that would denigrate her and validate whatever story he was now creating behind closed doors. His expectations were not for her quiet. Emma had been created in fire, not broken by flames. He did not know this. She went silently because she knew that getting retribution called for patience, not because she had accepted loss. Emma showed little enthusiasm for a theatrical moment or a brief ego blow. She wanted to, piece by piece, the way he had destroyed hers, demolish his whole universe. And she had something he had missed in his conceit: years of knowledge, access, and secrets hidden deep into the basis of their empire. She started by separating herself from the social circles they used to control jointly. Whispers filled the emptiness, some mocked, some pitied her. Emma wasn't concealing, though. She was in studies, watching, computing. She was aware of the company's shortcomings, as well as the dangerous financial shortcuts her husband had taken when he thought nobody would challenge him. She had assisted to bury some of the skeletons, hence she knew where they were buried. Unlike him, though, she recalled every detail. She started gathering quietly. Records, letters, documents, videos, stuff she knew at the beginning, stuff he never bothered to delete since he thought she would never turn on him. She was simply the forgotten, irrelevant, discarded wife after all. He mistook her determination for less. Months went by and Emma, now under observation, hired a covert but very talented legal team. She fed them every strand of dishonesty, every ethical transgression, every proof, positive evidence of deception. They developed a casing that was explosive rather than only airtight. She also deliberately revealed small controversies to the media at the same time, enough to cause speculations and make investors nervous. The stock of the corporation vacilled. Questions started to wash across the boardroom. Still, the whole storm had not yet materialized. Her husband, meantime, delighted in his new life. At events Emma once sponsored, he flaunted his mistress, now exhibited as his brilliant business partner. They praised their fresh start, all the while the business started to display minute flaws. Too preoccupied with the illusion of power to see it slinking from his hands, he missed. Emma then started. It started with a federal probe started by the evidence she had sent in under anonymity. Days after the company's financial records were subpoenaed, leaders were asked questions. Claims of fraud, insider trading, and embezzlement emerged. Investors got out, demand responses from shareholders. Emma silently watched through it all. She still had to finish, though. The last blow came when an online confidential report, one only a founder could have known existed, appeared. It went into great length on how the business had deliberately concealed a significant environmental infringement in order to preserve a valuable alliance. The reaction was quick and forceful. Outfits, legal actions, sponsors cutting relations, and the face of all, her husband, was left flailing to bring the anarchy under control. Within a few weeks, all he had taken from Emma went to ash in his hands. Once hidden behind a fortress of legal maneuvers, his personal finances were brought into public view. There were confiscated luxury residences, froze accounts. Also the mistress? She disappeared the instant the scandal touched her fancy heels. That left him with nothing, not the firm, not the riches, nor the woman. Emma stayed away from reaching out. She neither glowed or challenged him. No closure was given or final words. This dealt with consequence rather than catharsis. He had betrayed not only her love, but also her confidence, her daily life. And that price for betrayal was something else. From a distance, she watched as media sources turned him into a warning story, and he dropped from favor. In quick time he had gone from revered CEO to disgraced fraud. Once acclaimed, the same circles now murmured behind his back. Friends started to seem to be strangers. Allies went away. The empire he pilfered came apart. Emma, on the other hand, emerged, not as a victim but as a power. She launched a fresh business that grew best on openness and creativity, supported by the very investors who had left her husband's sinking ship. Her company sprung rapidly from the past. Her narrative evolved into one of resiliency, of quiet strength, of retribution executed precisely and patiently. Nobody brave enough crossed her once again. Emma finally went beyond the betrayal, not only survived it, she knew something her husband never knew. Real power is neither loud or flashy. It comes from neither titles nor money. It comes from understanding who you are when all else is taken away, and from having the will to rebuild, not from resentment but from intent. He had aimed to wipe her out. She made sure her name never vanished from the planet. Though time passed, Emma's vengeance still echoed in the hallways of power. The fall of her ex-husband became a case study taught in business schools, examined by reporters, whispered about in boardrooms. Once connected with creativity and leadership, his name now indelibly marked the annals of dishonor. Emma, meanwhile, stayed tormented by a fact she hadn't yet faced. Even the most pristine retribution leaves blood on your hands. The world moved on. Her new business grew quicker than anyone had projected. Investors looked to her with faith. Customers held her in great esteem. Emma felt something she hadn't expected behind the polished surface, though, a restless nature that would not go away. She had turned on the man who had deceived her, but in the process she had developed a part of herself that didn't really fit her former self. She had grown more remote, more keen, always one step ahead, never totally at ease, never totally trusting. Something odd came to light during a standard financial audit of her new business. A little discrepancy in a vendor's contract connected to an overseas shell company. Emma had learnt to search for shadows where others saw light, even though most CEOs would not have seen this kind of thing. Quietly avoiding her executive team, she followed the trail until it brought her to something surprising: the name of her ex-husband. Using aliases, offshore companies, and middlemen, he had somehow rebuilt himself into the game in spite of lawsuits, media frenzy, and loss of everything. He was not reconstructing a kingdom, not right now. He was, however, gently and meticulously sliding bits across a fresh board. Emma felt the cold sweep through her. He remained unfinished. Worse, he had slipped back into her world once more under cover of proxies. Her first impulse was to cut all contacts and wipe his participation. Still, that would only slow down the unavoidable. He had nothing left to lose, really. And men like that were risky. This went beyond simple treachery these days. It has to do with survival. Emma changed her perspective to one she knew all too well. The one she had embraced when his first betrayed her. Instead of withdrawing, she recruited digital forensic specialists, pulled strings behind the scenes, followed every dollar, every signature, every whisper linking him to her world. Her worries were validated when she discovered he was undermining her from within using what remained of his contacts. His false information had caused delays in a multimillion-dollar project by feeding a major partner. He had paid a compliance officer to let out confidential information. Worst of all, he had started reconstructing his public image by means of little projects, marketing them as ethical startups, and leveraging stolen frameworks, hers. Emma came to see this had nothing to do with retribution. There was war involved, one he had rekindled. And right here, I've got to ask you something. If you were in Emma's place, knowing someone had betrayed you so deeply, then crawled their way back into your life through shadows, would you strike first again, or walk away for good? Let me know in the comments, because trust, once it's broken like this, can it ever really be rebuilt? If you've been caught in something like this, friendship, love, business, I want to hear your take. Let's see how many of us would do what Emma's about to do. But she was not the same lady he had sought to eradicate. Public humiliation or publicity were not necessary to destroy him this time. She would damage him from the inside out, so gently that by the time he noticed he would be standing on ruins once more. But this time without even the illusion of control. Her agenda started with false information. She delivered well-written reports to his associates, leads with purchase targets, investment possibilities, and alliances. But they were poisoned. Every action meant to draw attention to him, or expose legal risk, financial loss. The shell corporation started to fall gradually. Governments halted accounts, turned on each other, collaborators did, and the story of his comeback crumbled. But something unanticipated occurred just as triumph seemed within grasp. One of her own executives, a man she trusted, was found cleaning money. And that was not any ordinary money. It passed via the same international network linked to her ex-husband. Emma's new legacy, her company, was now under fire internationally. She had the burn of vulnerability for the first time since her war started. Words like fraud, corruption, and cover-up flickered across headlines as her name pulled into stories mirroring those from her prior life. Journalists wondered on whether she had ever really severed relations with her ex-husband. Whispers surfaced suggesting perhaps she had been involved in the plans all along. Once her great advantage, trust started to fade. She resisted with openness and truth, published materials, sacked the official, participated in every study. Once done though, harm does not disappear, it stays. And the media, always ravenous for a fall from grace, presented her as a woman driven by vengeance, unable to flee the shadow of the man who had deceived her. Perhaps deep down there was some truth to that. One night Emma gazed at her reflection, older, sharper, more forceful than ever, but she wondered who she had become. Was she still the woman who once thought of creating something from love? Alternatively, had she turned into something colder, created not by ambition, but by the necessity to win at all means? She understood then that the actual cost of betrayal was not only the loss of her husband. That was the change it pushed upon her. She has survived indeed. She had overcome. But in doing this, she had turned into a weapon, and weapons are designed to destroy. Her last action was one of walking away, not a news release or a courtroom triumph. Emma secretly and quickly sold her company, giving a rising star she had coached covert control. She turned down offers of interviews, ignored proposals to write a book. She disappeared from the limelight not out of guilt, but rather because she had nothing left to validate. Her ex-husband, meantime, stayed caught in the cycle he had created, desperate to reconstruct, permanently damaged by the battles he started. The globe no longer gave his redemption any thought. They have progressed on. He hadn't, however. He couldn't. Emma discovered peace in her own release, not in his downfall. Retaliation had a price in the end. Walking away, though, that was extremely valuable.
Emma's story proves that revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's quiet, precise, inevitable. But what happens when the one betrayed is already 3 steps ahead? Meet Olivia, the woman who let them think they won. Let them spend, lie, and celebrate, all while she watched. And when the moment came, she made sure they lost everything. Watch next to see a new kind of revenge unfold. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy. See you in the next story.